Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Aidan.
I'm Gaynor.
I'm Sophie.
And today we're doing the coolest inventions from each state. I don't know if this is going to be like stuff that we don't know about or stuff that we do know about type thing, and didn't know that it came from that state.
Like the light bulb or that kind of thing.
Yeah. Where's Thomas Edison from? I don't know.
I don't know.
Because it could be something like that, and like say he's from Ohio. The coolest invention out of Ohio is the light bulb.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Or it's like cool stuff that we don't really know.
That's what I'm thinking when it says cool. It's not like
the best.
The best or like the coolest. What does coolest mean?
There are some inventions that you think to yourself, how did I not think of that? Do you know what I mean?
And then make
do you know what the Office Bloke Daz is the king of it? As soon as an invention comes out, he's like, I said that. I said that a couple of years ago. Remember when I told this so and so? I said that a couple of years ago.
No, I remember probably 30 years ago. He said, I'm going to set up a service where you go to your house and you pick your suitcase up and you take it to the airport and check it in. So when you leave your house, all you have to do is go to the airport and check in. You don't have to lug, cases and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, that'll never work, because who's going to trust you to pick the suitcase up, take it to the airport, check it in? Imagine going on holiday and you've not got your case type thing. And he's like, and I guarantee it will be delivered within 1 hour of you arriving at your hotel. And I'm like, but I want it there now. I don't want it in an hour.
Yeah.
Anyway, I talked him out of it. Somebody else did it and made absolute millions.
Don't. Because that's such a random thing as well. Like, who would think of that?
But he said the worst thing is lugging your suitcase with you in the back of a taxi or in the back of a car.
Yeah. Like up all the cobbled streets.
Yeah, people generally bring their suitcases to the airport now like the day before though. And check it in.
Yeah.
And then go home again. And then come back to the airport the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that as well.
Have you?
But 30 years ago he used to do it where he had a service that he sold, like the flight, let's say it was like British Airways, within that flight, it said, or you can have your for an extra £30, you can have your suitcase picked up by, Darren Ball driver.
yeah, a bit like Uber kind of vibe. Yeah, but for your suitcase.
And he wanted to do it, and I was like, no, that'll never work. Obviously it did.
Obviously it did, just not for Taz.
Let's see. Let's see which state has the coolest inventions.
What is going on, everyone? What was the coolest thing invented in your state? Most of us learned about something that was invented wherever we came from while we were growing up. Talked about it in school, whatever. I always found that very interesting. You could take a little pride in something that, bettered society if it was invented in your state in a way. I've had a few Texans bring up how Dr. Pepper was invented or created in their state. They always act like they had something to do with it too. It's really weird. But anyway, which one is the most important, cool, or just popular is debatable. We had a group discussion here at World According to Briggs, and we couldn't decide on how we should approach this subject. Important to society, most mass-produced, what was the most interesting? In the end, we just thought we would decide on a state-by-state basis, just whichever one we thought was the best one. This should be fun. If you think we're wrong on what the coolest in your state was, let us know in the comments section below. There's no right, no wrong answer here. This is just kind of an opinion. All right, let's take a look. Alabama. Alabama is a pretty interesting state for a lot of different reasons, but did you know the electric hearing aid was invented in Alabama? And it's got an interesting backstory. A man named Miller Reese Hutchinson spent 4 years researching this because he had a friend who had become deaf and mute after a childhood case of scarlet fever. He designed, worked on it, and created it at Alabama Medical College in 1898. That's how long they've been around. Alaska. Alaska really gave us ranch dressing. No kidding. A plumber named Steve Henson was kind of the cook for this remote job site in Alaska in the 1950s. And one day, I guess they were...
I reckon it's one of them things, though, that's kind of been, like, developed as it goes on throughout the years. Like, it probably doesn't taste the same when it was first invented as it does now. I don't reckon. Do you know what I mean?
I don't. Yeah.
I made ranch dressing once.
Oh.
And how was it?
What I mean?
Just like, oh, not my mum's cooking.
No, I made it once and it was actually pretty good, but it didn't taste like the ranch out of a bottle.
Yeah.
I'm just because you always try and make stuff at home rather than just buying the normal stuff.
Spend like 3 times as much on the ingredients.
Yeah, I can make that at home.
Yeah. Mum, can I have a train track? No, I'll knit you one.
Yeah, literally.
out of, I don't know, mustard or other salad dressing, and he decided to spice up buttermilk, mayonnaise with some herbs, threw it on a salad, and it was a big hit. He continued to make it, and then he got married. Him and his wife moved to California and opened up a restaurant called Hidden Valley Ranch. Alaska also gave us kayaks. I feel that one needs to be mentioned too. Arkansas. Now this one we were kind of on the fence with because Walmart comes from Arkansas and that's really not an invention, it's just really a business, but it's still got its roots in Arkansas. But this one may shock some of you. Movies with sound started in Arkansas. A man named Freeman Owens put sound to film in 1923 and held 200 patents during his lifetime.
So is there even a point of watching the movie if you can't hear it?
Well, years ago they used to have silent movies, didn't they?
Yeah.
What was the point?
Yeah, like Charlie Chaplin and stuff.
And,
yeah, Charlie Chaplin, sorry.
That must be quite boring, though.
Well, that's all they had.
Yeah, they didn't know any different, so to them it was like a treat.
Fair enough,
on it
then,
to
I
go
guess,
through the
yeah.
music.
You make up your own words, don't you?
Yeah.
Hmm.
If anything, it's probably better because it was like more. It's leaving it to your like own imagination. Yeah.
Well, I get that. Yeah.
Arizona, the taser. Everyone knows and loves the taser. You can watch YouTube videos about people getting tased all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do, sadly. The taser was invented in Arizona by a NASA scientist named Jack Cover. Now, he developed the taser in the 1970s, but it used gunpowder to actually launch the prongs. Well, nobody was buying it, and the business eventually collapsed. Well, around 1993, two Arizona brothers reached out to Cover and asked him to help them develop a taser that could be sold to civilians for personal protection. Maybe it was the time or the switch over to compressed air instead of gunpowder. Either way, it started selling, and now it's a big part of law enforcement and people trying to get to their car at the mall in the middle of the night. California.
Sorry, I don't want to skip past, but that's like the coolest one so far. Like that is something that's actually cool.
What, the taser?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like ranch isn't that cool. It's like it's nice and it's like a good invention, but it's not really cool.
No, but
Whereas a taser.
But a taser,
it's practical
taser's
as
cool,
well.
man.
Have you ever been tasered?
Yeah, plenty of times.
No, have you?
No.
Have you?
Why, you're going to say you have or something?
No, I haven't.
No, you asking us like you were going to be like, so back in 19... You know what I mean?
When I was running from the cops.
Yeah, literally.
The iPhone. Yes, in 2007, Steve Jobs brought us the iPhone. I should say a bunch of engineers at Apple, along with Steve Jobs pushing it, brought us the iPhone. In 2007 is when it launched, and in 2007, Time Magazine named it the invention of the year. Colorado. The cheeseburger. Yes, McDonald's, Burger King, none of them came up with the cheeseburger. It was actually Denver's Humpty Dumpty Drive-In. They had this crazy idea to put some cheese on meat and then put 2 pieces of bun around it. I think they had hamburgers already at that point, but putting the cheese on it was just groundbreaking. Connecticut, vulcanized rubber. Vulcanized rubber doesn't sound like a big deal to most people, but Charles Goodyear discovered the secret of vulcanizing rubber, a process named after the Roman god of fire, Vulcan. And it's not just in tires, it's life jackets, gloves, pencil erasers, all kinds of good stuff use vulcanized rubber. Runner-up for this one was the can opener. Came from Connecticut. Delaware. Kevlar. Kevlar came from Dow Chemicals, and it was invented by Stephanie Kwolek. She was a longtime chemist at DuPont, and she discovered this synthetic fiber that's bulletproof. I mean, it saved a lot of lives, saved a lot of injuries. I, could have at least gotten a couple dozen stitches if it wasn't for a Kevlar helmet on a couple occasions, actually. But she invented this in the 19th.
I've never heard of Kevlar. Have you?
No.
It must be what they use to make like bulletproof vests and stuff. Is that what they're on about?
That's what they said, but I've never heard of Kevlar.
No.
With the brand name.
I always wondered how it's bulletproof, but I just thought it was probably like a padding. I don't know.
Probably
not an actual
bit
fabric.
more than padding.
Well, yeah.
Just wear a puffer jacket.
Bit of cotton wool, yeah.
Go on, shoot me. Go back a bit.
Saved a lot of lives, saved a lot of injuries. I, could have at least gotten a couple dozen stitches if it wasn't for a Kevlar helmet on a couple occasions, actually. But she invented this in the 1960s, and now it's everywhere. Runner-up in Delaware was, again, at DuPont in the 1930s. It was nylon. Florida. Florida gets 2, and they both have to do with how hot it is in Florida. One, this is where air conditioning was invented. The original version of air conditioning was just basically blowing air over frozen towels and different fabrics, things like that. The second thing that was invented in Florida that I think is significant, Gatorade. An assistant for the University of Florida's football team asked university scientists about why so many of their players were having...
That's my favorite like sports drink.
Gatorade.
Yeah.
I don't like it at all.
Many people like compare it to Lucozade over here, but for me, Gatorade's just clear.
Really? I don't like anything that's really sugary.
Like all them drinks that are like you can get in different colours. Type
yeah, you
thing.
like kids' drinks.
Yeah, they're not kids' drinks. Gatorade is just miles ahead of all of the other ones, I think.
No.
And it might be one of them things because I don't drink it as often because I don't get it as often.
So it's more like a
So
novelty.
when I have it, it's like.
Is it better than Monster? Would you say?
Yeah, it's different. Monster's like fizzy, isn't it?
That's what I mean. Yeah, depends what mood you're in.
Yeah, it's more like a sports drink rather than
Like
an energy drink.
Is it isotonics or something they have in it?
It's the same as like a Lucozade Sport.
Right.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, like electrons or something.
Yeah.
Electrolytes.
Electrolytes. That's supposed to like. Yeah, I just think it's
probably
all
good for a hangover.
Yeah, bit of sugar.
Heat-related injuries and all that, and they decided it was because electrolytes. So they decided to come up with a drink that would replace electrolytes. That drink is Gatorade. And the reason they named it that, the University of Florida's football team is the Gators. Georgia.
Interesting.
Georgia has quite a few things. Coca-Cola, different forms of anesthesia, but probably the most important thing ever created in Georgia was the cotton gin. The cotton gin was invented by Eli Whitney in 1794. He'd been working on it for some time, but this amazing machine separated cotton fiber from the seeds, which used to be picked out by hand, one little seed at a time. Hawaii. Surfing. They attribute Hawaiians to surfing. There's a lot of discussion on where it may have actually started, but what we know as surfing today is attributed to Hawaii. I mean, they perfected it and they made it popular. And they have some of the best surf in the world, too, so it only makes sense. Idaho. Idaho invented television. Well, sort of. The original blueprints for television were drawn on a high school chemistry classroom blackboard in Idaho by a guy named Farnsworth in the early 1900s. But he didn't actually get around to making the device until 1927, when he relocated to San Francisco. Is anyone else surprised that Idaho's invention didn't have something to do with fishing, with explosives? Illinois, the transistor. Yep, in Chicago, Illinois, in a hotel room, William Shockley developed the first junction transistor in 1948. And if you don't know what that is, that's just a device that turns electric current on and off. These days, it's much more advanced and it does everything from turn on lights to open your car doors with your remote, things like that. Indiana, the washing machine. We all have a machine doing our laundry these days because of a dude in Indiana. His name was William Blackstone, and he built the first rotary machine that removed dirt from clothes as a birthday gift to his wife in 1874. That is an incredible gift. I mean, he didn't just give it to his wife.
When I first moved to the States, what I found fascinating was the washing machines are top loading. So you know, like we open the little circle.
That picture
door.
that they showed there was on the side, wasn't it?
Yeah,
there?
What we use.
Yeah.
But when I first moved there, we have and it's a lot bigger than machines over there.
Yeah.
Ours is like a little circle.
Everything's
and you
just
open
bigger
it,
over
and
there.
You just push it up.
Everything.
But there, it's like a top loader. So you open the top and put your clothes in the top.
And isn't it like a thing like there's like a bit like I don't know, is there something in the middle?
It's just like a massive big
Is
drum,
that
a circle
everywhere?
with like a big thing in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you think that's everywhere though, or was that just like something you had when you lived there?
Or does every state have?
I reckon a lot of people over in America have it same as us with it on the side, like
I feel like they're doing like
a circle on
New
the, circle
York
on the
and
front.
stuff.
Yeah.
Say like I've seen it where they're like on top of each other. You've got like a washer and a dryer, and they look like exactly like what we have, where it opens out.
You can't put them
but
on
that's
top
more
of each
space.
other.
Yeah, I think it's probably more to do with space.
But the actual washing machine and dryer I had, the dryer was like on the front. You put all your stuff in, but the machine was the top loader.
What do you prefer?
I prefer the top loader, but the only problem is they take a lot longer to wash. Like if I put my washing in, it takes me about, I can do it in 20 minutes.
Yeah, if you do a quick
there,
wash.
it's probably like 2 hours. It takes forever
Really?
to do it. Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't be bothered with that.
No.
If he gave it to all of us. Iowa. The first gas-powered tractor was invented in Iowa. An Iowa farmer named John Froelich got tired of dragging a steam engine out to the fields, and he came up with the gas-powered tractor. Kansas. The helicopter. I was going to go with the icy, like the Slurpee type thing. That was invented in Coffeyville, Kansas at a Dairy Queen, but we're going to go with helicopters. So there was a local inventor dude in Kansas named Rex Manival. He developed the helicopter in 1939. He only got so far with his invention before other people took it over, kind of ran with it. I mean, when he was doing it, he was only going a couple feet off the ground and it was always attached to the ground by ropes. But he could lift off the ground with a helicopter, and yeah, that's where it started, in Kansas. Kentucky, bourbon, and the song Happy Birthday, but we're gonna go with bourbon. I wonder if the two of those had anything to do with each other. But no, bourbon was invented in Kentucky. There's a little discussion on who actually came up with bourbon and who first distilled it, but a lot of people attribute it to a Kentucky Baptist minister named Elijah.
So is bourbon just like whiskey?
It's a type of whiskey, yeah. So there's whiskey and then there's bourbon. The two separate things, but they
But they're the same.
But they
Very
taste
similar.
very similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Craig. He's the one that everyone thinks actually came up with bourbon. Louisiana, jazz. Most of this list is actually things you can put your hands on. Jazz you can't put your hands on, but I think this one's important. The first mention of jazz music was in 1916 in an article of the New Orleans Times, where they actually called it JAS bands, like jazz instead of a Z and S. Anyway, that was the first time it was ever mentioned. To know who actually invented jazz, well, that's impossible, but more than 100 years later, New Orleans is known as the birthplace of jazz. It's also the birthplace of poker. Maine, the diving suit. Yeah, you gotta have a diving suit if you're gonna jump in the water in Maine. It's normally really cold. While metal diving suit concepts date way back to the 17th century, Leonard Necross patented the first rubber diving suit in 1834. They also invented donuts there. Maryland. Bottle caps. They invented bottle caps in Maryland. A man named William Painter invented the bottle cap in 1891. Massachusetts.
See, stuff like that kind of confuses me because they invented the bottle before the bottle cap. What was on the top of the bottle before the bottle cap was invented?
Nothing.
Yeah. So it's just
You just
everything
keep
got
it up,
inside
right?
it,
Yeah.
and it wasn't fresh. Yeah.
See what I mean? Same as like earlier on in the video, he was like, someone, I don't remember which one it was, but invented the can opener. It's like before you had the can opener, you obviously had the can before the can opener, but how are you opening the can before the can opener was invented?
Good question.
Yeah. I think that's not like back then. It would have been so easy, like to actually just think of something. Oh, I've got a problem, like, and you think like, oh, I keep spilling my drink.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
put something on top of
If
it.
you think of a can of corned beef, how do you open a can of corned beef?
It's like
Use like a little thing to pull
It's
it.
a little key. So it's a little
Yeah.
key, and you attach it to the spiky bit that sticks out, and then you roll it, and it rolls around, and then you just take it off. So maybe that's all
weird,
cans
isn't
were
it?
like that.
There must have been a way to open it.
Well, yeah, there's also the point in putting stuff in it.
Massachusetts. Facebook. Yes, Mark Zuckerberg developed it in his dorm room at Harvard. He also sort of had to settle with the dudes he kind of took the idea from, but regardless of the backstory, Facebook was developed at Harvard, which is in Massachusetts. Michigan, the automobile assembly line. Now, the Model T Ford was also created here too, but Ford wasn't the first automobile assembly line. The first one was actually done by Ransom E. Olds, who came up with the Oldsmobile, and that was in 1901. Minnesota. Rollerblades. Now, everyone knows that Scotch tape and Post-it notes came from Minnesota, but not everyone knows rollerblades came from Minnesota. Scott and Brennan Olson invented rollerblades in 1980. Mississippi, Pine Sol. You know the cleaning product? Pine Sol was invented in the Magnolia State. Chemist Harry A. Cole was living in some forests near Jackson, Mississippi, amongst all the pine trees, and started testing it as a disinfectant and deodorizer. And now we have Pine Sol, and if you ever spent any time in the military, you know everything is cleaned with Pine Sol. Missouri, the ice cream cone.
Pause.
Press pause.
Pause. I drink pine needle tea. Have you ever tried it?
Never. It's not something that I don't think I've ever.
It's really nice. It's not a strong taste, but it's really good for you.
Does it taste like it smells like, you know, the pine smell? Does it taste like that?
No, because the pine needles are dried, so it doesn't really taste of anything. Maybe just water.
Was it that like see-through bag that you had?
Yeah, with
Like,
pine needles. My friend Debbie told me to drink pine needle tea. It helps with their eyesight. After I had my COVID jab, I'm convinced.
how many fingers am I holding up?
3. No, but after I had my COVID jab, my eyesight went terrible, and I'm convinced it's to do with that. And people were saying to me, "Don't be silly." But anyway,
still,
my friend Debbie
never
said to
know.
me, "Drink pine needle tea, and it'll bring your eyesight back."
Has it worked? It's gone, but no.
No.
Okay.
ever spent any time in the military, you know everything is cleaned with Pine Sol. 3. The ice cream cone. The first ever ice cream cone was invented, but it first showed up at the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. Montana. The portable heart monitor. So for all you with a bad ticker, you could thank Montana for it. Actually, Helena, Montana was where it came from. Norman Jeffers Holter founded the Holter Research Foundation, and in 1947, he invented the wearable Holter heart monitor. Nice. You can get out and get around. Nebraska. The ski lift. Yeah, the ski lift. Nebraska is one of the flattest states we have, and they came up with a ski lift. Well, the first time it was put in use was actually in Idaho. The reason the ski lift was invented wasn't for skiers. It was actually to move bushels of bananas. Nevada. Blue jeans. In 1873, Levi Strauss introduced something that would become, like, iconic for America. It is probably the most successful article of clothing that the United States has ever had, and probably the world. New Hampshire. The Segway. Yeah, you know that funky thing that's replaced walking, or they want it to? The Segway was invented in Manchester, New Hampshire by Dean Kamen. He's an American engineer who's come up with all kinds of crazy stuff. Right now he's working on a water purification system that could, you know, turn swamp water into drinkable water. And it's pretty impressive. He's done things like the first at-home dialysis machine, and a few other things. The guy's a genius, and he's still alive. A lot of people think he's dead because the guy that bought Segway from him drove a Segway off a cliff a year after buying the company. New Jersey, the light bulb. Thomas Edison gave us the...
Is that true?
Yeah.
Was it an accident or?
I can't remember, but I remember hearing about the Segway and somebody driving it off a cliff. I'm not sure whether it was like an accident or deliberate.
So this person bought the Segway company, and then a year later
drove it off a cliff.
Died.
Yeah.
Driving it off a cliff.
Have a look on your phone, Aidan, see if it was
That's
an accident
so
or...
I wonder if he's like testing the brakes on it or something.
Well, there isn't brakes, is there?
No, I know, but like
Yeah,
testing, like leaning back and he's like...
Maybe you just accidentally just...
Like, remember when you and Declan did it in... It was like in... it was like a car park or a square in Portugal.
To me, they just look very... Like, you've got to have, like, lots of balance.
Yeah.
He reversed his Segway to allow a fellow dog walker to get past him. He fell from a nearby cliff.
Oh, wow. So it was an accident.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh, my gosh.
That's why I don't go on a Segway.
Yeah.
Well, just if you can go on a Segway, just don't drive it near a cliff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, to be fair, what you do near a cliff.
But still, be me.
I remember when we went on holiday and I drove a Segway and fell off it.
That's what I said when we were in Portugal, weren't we? In that big square.
Yeah, and I fell off.
Yeah.
Bought Segway from him, drove a Segway off a cliff a year after buying the company. New Jersey, the light bulb. Thomas Edison gave us the light bulb, and his laboratory was in Menlo Park, New Jersey, not Menlo Park, California. In a 2-year time frame in the late 1800s, he made over 3,000 different types of light bulbs trying to make one work. The way he wanted it to, I should say. New Mexico, the atomic bomb. Yes, we have New Mexico to blame for blowing up a couple cities in Japan back in the 1940s. The creation of the first atomic bomb was done in Alamogordo, New Mexico. New York, toilet paper. Toilet paper comes to us from the great state of New York. In 1857, an entrepreneur named...
What was everyone doing before 1857?
Using newspaper.
Really?
Imagine.
Is that what they did?
Yeah, if you remember years and years ago,
I won't
toilets were outside. So if you wanted the toilet, you had to go out in your back garden and walk across the back garden to a toilet at the back. And on a hook were just all the newspapers.
What, do you remember this?
No, I remember watching how we used to live.
All right. The way you said, do you remember, like...
I never had a
when I was a kid,
No, but I do know people who still had an outdoor toilet.
Really?
Yeah. Like I think my mum and dad said they knew people who still had the outdoor toilet. Yeah. Because it's just like finding a place for it in your house, though. Do you know what I mean?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I hate it when a toilet's right next to the kitchen. I think it's so unhealthy.
Yeah. I think it's just mainly like, you know, like older buildings, like Victorian houses and stuff. Like, it's either you get rid of like some of a bedroom.
Yeah. And also, a lot of people had a bathroom downstairs, not upstairs. So if you wanted a shower, You used to have to come downstairs with your towel and everything, have a shower, and then go back upstairs to get ready.
And just like walk past everybody.
Yeah, through the kitchen, through the living room.
Yeah, that annoys me when you have like a bathroom on the bottom floor and a kitchen on the middle floor.
Yeah, like we used to have.
Yeah.
Like
our kitchen and living room was upstairs.
See, I guess it's something you get used to, but it would just...
Yeah.
Like, initially it'd be like strange,
I think the reason ours was like that was because we lived on the canal. So when you were sat on the middle floor, you could see the canal, you could see all the boats, so it's quite nice.
Yeah, that, to be fair, yeah, that would be lovely.
Yeah.
I just can't believe you used to use newspaper. Does it not get...
I know, surely, like...
When I was at school, the newspaper was like this white, crunchy paper. It wasn't soft.
Yeah.
It was like...
Is it soft now? It's not. It's never been soft.
Toilet paper.
Oh, I thought you were talking about newspaper.
I
you said
newspaper.
You did say newspaper.
Yeah, but at school, our toilet paper wasn't soft like toilet paper. It was like this white, crunchy paper, like you get at the butcher's type thing. It was horrible. It used to like cut you and everything.
Oh.
Jesus. Yeah. Because that's what I was thinking. I was like, especially with like, you know, when they use newspapers, like the ink, obviously would transfer.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you have like ink everywhere?
Yeah.
Right, I reckon we move on. Next state.
Toilet paper comes to us from the great state of New York. In 1857, an entrepreneur named Joseph Gady developed the first paper that was designed for your backside. North Carolina, the airplane. The Wright brothers first flew and got their business off the ground, quite literally, in North Carolina at Kitty Hawk. They actually first flew at a place called Kill Devil Hill, but Kitty Hawk sounds nicer when you're telling the story.
To invent something like that is just insane.
Cool.
Yeah.
People from Ohio like to argue this one because the Wright brothers are from Dayton, Ohio, but they first flew at Kitty Hawk or Kill Devil Hill. North Dakota, the Kodak camera. Yes, it's from North Dakota. I would have never guessed that one. I would have thought, you know, someplace with a lot of industry like, you know, maybe Ohio or New York or something like that, but North Dakota. Ohio, the traffic light. That's not as exciting as Superman. Superman was created in Glenville, which is a neighborhood in Cleveland, in 1933 by Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel. They sold the rights to DC Comics in 1938 for, get this, $130. Wow. That's almost $3,000 in today's money. Oklahoma, the parking meter. The parking meter was created in Oklahoma City, who had a problem. They didn't have enough parking places for all the cars, so they were trying to encourage people to get their shopping done and get out of town so other people could get there. So they started a nickel an hour parkometer program and had these meters. Oregon, Wikipages. So Wikipages would eventually become things like Wikipedia. But in 1995, Oregon-based programmer Ward Cunningham wanted to create a website where the average Joe could get on and update pages and add pages to it and just have it always growing. He used the word wiki from the Hawaiian term, which means very fast or quick. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has a lot of really cool things that came out of there. The suspension bridge, the first computers, Ferris wheel, and my favorite, bubblegum. Walter Dimer was a full-time accountant in Philadelphia when he started toying with the different recipes for gum, and he actually came up with bubblegum. Gum had already been around, but the actual type of texture and formula they have now where you could actually blow bubbles with it was invented here in Philadelphia. Rhode Island. Rhode Island has a very interesting one. Diners. They came up with diners. They were the first ones to have them, but I think the most important one was the automatic sprinkler system that they put in buildings to, you know, knock out fires and stuff. South Carolina, the military submarine. In 1864, during the Civil War, Horace Hunley developed the first military submarine which was put into use during the Civil War. South Dakota, the cyclotron. Ernest Lawrence invented this particle accelerator in 1932, and it was used to discover things like different elements and cancer treatments. Tennessee. Cotton candy. Cotton candy was developed in Nashville, Tennessee in 1897 by a dentist. I get the feeling he was just trying to get more customers. Texas. I'm sure a lot of you think that their inventions have something to do with Old West and things like that. No, they've invented some pretty cool stuff. First one I want to tell you about is the electric typewriter. James Field Smathers invented the first electric typewriter in 1912. They also came up with the first handheld calculator. Utah, airbags. Automobile airbags had...
So this could be wrong, but I'm sure I read somewhere that with the typewriter, so you know, like on our keyboards and stuff, it's all like the letters are all in like random places. Originally, it was all like the alphabet, but then they said that the typists were actually typing too quickly. I don't know if it was like because they were getting the work done too quickly or what, but that's why they like made it random so it would slow them down because they were actually doing like, I don't know, a too good enough job, if that made sense. I don't know why though.
That's
like,
interesting.
Yeah. Because it's, what is it called now? The quirky.
Because you
QWERTY.
I have always wondered why it's just in random place. I mean, I would hate if we made it to the alphabet now, I'd be slower.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Same, because that's what we're used to. But yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be wrong, but I read it somewhere and it's like, oh.
Have you ever used a typewriter?
Never, no.
They're quite cool. I used to have a typewriter. I used to type letters to, like, I had a pen friend. I used to type letters to my pen friend.
Love it. I've got like a really, like, I got it about 10 years ago from a charity shop. I paid £10 for it. It's like this like real like heavy like proper vintage sewing machine.
I remember you saying that.
Like a real like one that you have to turn the.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've never used it, but
just for show.
Yeah, but it's in like my dad's shed, and he keeps saying, "Are you gonna put it in your flat?" And I'm like, "No." Just like clutter at this point.
The first electric typewriter in 1912. They also came up with the first handheld calculator. Utah airbags. Automobile airbags had kind of been on the drawing board since the 1960s, but they really weren't practical until about the mid-1980s when they started installing them in cars. Vermont, sandpaper. At least I should say the sandpaper we know today. Forms of sandpaper can be traced back to China in like the 13th or 14th century, but what we know as sandpaper today was developed in 1834 in Springfield, Vermont. Virginia, chapstick. In the late 1890s, Dr. Charles Brown Fleet, known for inventing health products, came up with chapstick in Lynchburg, Virginia. His wife was the one that came up with the idea of selling it like lipstick in a tube, and that helped the business boom. Washington. Windows operating system, which is on most of our computers. Originally, Bill Gates and his band of merry men started Microsoft in New Mexico, but in 1979 they moved to Bellevue, Washington. 2 years later, they came out with the first personal computer operating system. West Virginia, steamboats. Steamboats were invented by James Ramsey in 1787 on the Potomac River. Wisconsin, the blender. If you love margaritas, you can thank Wisconsin for your margarita. Wyoming. So they have two interesting ones. One, I'm not sure if it fits, but we're going to go with it. National parks. The first national parks were in Wyoming. They were sort of placed there. I wouldn't say the whole idea was cooked up there. But one thing they did invent in Wyoming was headgear. You know that weird thing you put on your head if you have braces? If you had to wear one of those in the 1970s or 80s, you could thank John Devine for his 1924 invention. All right, that's
what do you mean headgear if you wear braces?
Was there like I think I've seen it. Is it like a character on Toy Story or something? Some like cartoon where you'd have your braces, but then you'd have like wires, like a wire thing to like keep them straight. It wouldn't just be like, there was like a contraption that you'd have to. Yeah, wear, I think.
Interesting.
The only braces I've seen are the ones that just go straight into your mouth.
Yeah.
And then when your teeth are, and then you go back, don't you, have them tightened and loosened and stuff. Oh. And then you have a retainer.
I feel sorry for anyone that has braces because they just look like, I mean, now I think they're a lot better, but like they just, I remember my friend getting them done and she was like, oh, they're just so painful.
Yeah.
But she was like about 18, 20 at this point, so like,
it's worth it.
Yeah,
well. Danielle had braces 2 years before she got married.
Really?
Yeah, proper like big braces.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
I thought only really like you'd find young people.
No, a lot of people have braces.
I'm not saying she's old, by the way.
No, like as you get older, like obviously you just think of kids, don't you?
It's something more you'd try and get
happens,
done at when you're young.
You probably don't know is when you're pregnant, all your like muscles and stuff go relax, and so your teeth move when you're pregnant.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So a lot of people after they've had children have a brace to put the teeth back. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So it's worth it having a brace put on when you're pregnant.
Just for those like you know, those couple of months and then never knew.
I think we need to thank America though with how many cool inventions they come up with.
Yeah.
Especially the blender for my margaritas.
I know, yeah, exactly.
I know all your smoothies you make.
Yeah.
Health kick.
Yeah,
but yeah, I find it fascinating how like I always think of like Because now we look back, say, in the past 100 years and everything that's been invented and like, oh, I couldn't live without my phone, without, you know, my car, like everything. And then I think, what are people going to think in like the next 100 years from now? They're going to be thinking, oh, how do people live now without, you know what I mean, all the stuff that they have. Yeah. It's interesting. True. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I couldn't live without was my washing machine. I'd hate to have to...
Out of everything?
Yeah. I don't... Yeah,
Can you imagine having to wash everything by hand?
Yeah.
With
and like a mango.
Yeah. Oh, no.
No.
Or even like with the...
Out of everything, though?
Yeah. I could live without
so
my phone.
You'd rather live without your car than your washing machine?
Yeah. I could always get a taxi.
There we go, exactly.
You can always take it to the dry cleaners or something. Yeah. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe button for us, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.